Welcome to The Fix. I'm your host, Brock Bevel. First, I'd like to thank Shello TV for giving me this opportunity to start a new show that addresses addiction of all forms that we face in our lives. The goal of this program is to provide our community here in Shello with up-to-date, tangible solutions to addiction and recovery. First, I'd like to talk about my story as a former police officer and how I was inspired to help others from my own addiction. A lot of you know that I own a company here in town where we help many people in the community and outside the community with addiction. My story started in 1997 when I became a police officer in the Mesa Police Department. In 2001, while I was working in a patrol, I was involved in a foot pursuit where I was arresting a young man. He took off, foot pursuit ensued. I went to jump a fence, and when I landed in a hole and blew my knee out. And really, that was my first experience with opiates. My recovery lasted about 1 year from the injury to the time that I was back on the force. I didn't get too hooked at the time. I didn't really understand. I just knew that I loved the feeling of the addiction. I knew I loved the feeling of the pills, but I was able to maintain my job, maintain my family life, to continue to go to the doctors. What happened in 2001 was a little bit different. I was working a narcotic sting where we were watching a drug deal go down where a 12-year-old girl was being traded for drugs. And at this moment, when I approached the vehicle, myself and my partner were run over. I was struck, my right foot was caught under the tire, and she ran myself and my partner over. I sustained a major knee injury, a foot injury. My partner's back was broken. Both of us have since retired from the Mesa Police Department, but my story became a little different than his. I, at that time, was hooked on prescription medication, not knowing that I was becoming hooked. The problem I had was I was able to go to doctor, and he provided me with 190 pills at a time. And so over the course of that, my injury, I continued to use the opiates, and I thought in my head that I was doing it correctly, not knowing that I was becoming addicted to the feeling of the medication. I was since a couple months after that I was retired, and I remember sitting in the board where they thanked me for being a police officer and said, hey, we have to retire you because of your injuries. And at that point in time where my addiction became really heavy, and a lot of law enforcement, military personnel, they can understand what I'm saying, is when I retired, I turned my keys in. The next day, I couldn't come back as a police officer. I had no keys, I had no entry, I had to go through the front desk to get to my friends, to get to my team. And it was difficult. The process was difficult. I felt like I had lost the connection with my best friends, with my brotherhood. And so my addiction started to get heavier when I started using to mask my symptoms of my knee and foot injury, to mask my sadness and depression. My addiction actually lasted approximately 10 years. It started in 2001, and over the course of that time, I destroyed my family. I found it more difficult to become employable just because of where my mindset was at. So really, not to be somber about education or addiction, but you have to understand why it's so important to me now. The reason I started helping men and women with addiction is because I realized that there was 3 ways out of addiction recovery. One way is you get sober. The second way is you get locked up, and the third way is you get covered up. That's kind of somber for people to hear. That's why we're so excited to post online, hey, I got 30 days, I got 90 days. We want to share the news. This is why we go to meetings on a daily basis to get a 24-hour chip, a 90-day chip, a 1-year chip, and currently 10 years. Because the price of admission to addiction recovery almost costs us our lives, if that makes any sense. In this community, we have a stigma of addiction. In the Valley, we have a stigma of addiction. Is we refer to addicts as crackheads and alcoholics and junkies and drunks and liars and thieves and criminals. And addicts are scorned by many communities, even this one. I have a interesting story to tell. I was actually looking for a new facility to expand, and I went into a business here in town. I won't share who it was or what business it was, but I walked in and I broached the lady behind the desk, talked to her about finding a new place, a new residential living component. And when I began to talk to her, she goes, "Oh, I know who you are. I know who you are. You run Blue Vase." I said, "I do." She goes, "I go to the bank every day to deposit money. And when I go there, I see your guys outside. I see them playing football. I see them laughing and just having a good time carrying on. And they look happy." And I looked at her kind of perplexed, and I said, is that good? Isn't that what you want? She goes, "No, I think that's completely wrong, the wrong way to do addiction recovery." She actually, I got further with her and asked her what she expected, and she said, "I thought they should be locked up. I thought they should be inside of a building and not outside having fun." And I looked at her, and I had to walk away because I was frustrated, because that's what prisons do. Prisons take away our moral direction. They take away some of our opportunity. So it's actually a moral issue, in my opinion. I believe we shame addicts, we guilt them, we have fears, and it prevents me from admitting that we have a problem. So a lot of us fail to seek treatment. Medical professionals misdiagnose addiction on a daily basis. They don't treat addiction properly. Sometimes it may be a dual diagnosis where they're struggling with some mental illness along with addiction. And people in addiction are always under suspicion, right? So, and they confront this stigma-based society. So how do we overcome this as addicts? People in recovery have a harder time finding jobs, keeping jobs, securing a driver's license that we've lost in the past. Just to make a point of how we have a stigma on people is when we see a homeless man on the streets, he's begging for change, he smells like alcohol, we assume that this individual has made bad choices. When Charlie Sheen is cracked out of his mind, we think, hey, there goes another entitled celebrity. When Robert Downey Jr. goes from heroin addict to Iron Man, we applaud him. But how about when a Miss America tested positive for cocaine, we think, wow, she's a disgrace. But when a 14-year-old boy dies of an overdose from opiates or fentanyl, well, that's a tragedy. So how do we help addicts? We have to be able to get into the addict's head. We got to be able to understand that we're no different than anybody else. For example, my concern is we as a community believe that an addict is from 18 to 25 and they have no profession. But I want to give you some stats that talk about professions that are most affected by addiction. So the number one is restaurant and hospitality. 16.9% of the people working in this industry are addicts. Okay, how about doctors and healthcare specialists? 10 to 14% of them are being ruled by addiction. And the reason is because it's easy to get involved in. Now, number 3 on the list would be arts and entertainment. We see singers and actors, etc. But this is where it kind of gets a little bit scary. Number 4, 5, and 6. Number 4 is 1 in every 5 lawyers and attorneys are addicted. Okay, number 5, my issue. 1 in 4 police officers are addicted to some type of medication or alcohol. Fire department, they have a rate of 9% of their staffs are addicted. Military, 1 in 5. So not all addicts that we're seeing in this community are that 18 to 25 who are breaking into your home, stealing your pills. They are your brothers, they are your sister, they are the individuals that you see at work. 19.7 million people struggle with addiction. 19.7 million. And only 1.4 million of them are seeking treatment. So the question is why? Why are they not seeking treatment? Of that millions and millions of people, 992,000 of them are between the ages of 12 and 17. okay, if we don't think that's a national statistic, if that's a concern for our community, we need to open our eyes and find out how we can help and basically refocus on this addiction recovery. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a break, introduce you to the first guest of The Fix. His name is Deshon Mason, a personal friend of mine. We've been together for about 3 years. What I'd like to do is share his story with you, ask him some questions, and maybe we can be stronger and be more unified in understanding how the addiction process works. Welcome back to The Fix. I'm Brock Bevel, your host with Deshon Mason. My first interview here on the show. Pretty excited about it, man.
Man, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, man. And I was able to, blessed enough to be able to sit in on a bit of your story. I really enjoyed it and definitely had a different perception of it. You know, what really stuck out to me, man, the fact that you were a police officer and became an addict. You know what I mean? Normally, as a black man, you know, in today's society, we're kind of expected, you know, to either become criminals or be incarcerated or become addicted, you know, to a substance or alcohol. As opposed to you know, you have different expectations, you know, in society's eyes, you know, to be a successful police officer or a successful firefighter, you know, and you're not expected to become an addict, you know. So the fact that, you know, you were able to overcome addiction, you know, and today, you know, you're helping recovering addicts, man, that really sticks out to me, man, and I love that. You know, the shame and guilt that you must feel, you know, that could be really tough, you know. And so I'm really grateful for the fact that, you know, you're able to present your story and help other recovering addicts. It just proves that addiction does not discriminate. Opiates do not discriminate at all. You know, anybody could become an addict.
You know, it's interesting you say that. For me, that was hard. That was hard. Number one, I believe there was more depression that went into leaving the department. You know, my addiction got stronger at the end of the department as I was there, but got ridiculously out of control as I lost that team and lost that community and lost that connection. And really, that's what I wanted to bring back here to Sholo, is just that connection with people. I'm selfish, you know what I mean? Really, I'm selfish. I wanted to create a bunch of men who could do epic stuff together. And I felt like as a man, I stopped fishing, I stopped going kayaking, I stopped riding my mountain bike. The addiction completely took from me like my energy. Did you have any effects like that? Absolutely.
A lot of the things that I would enjoy doing, that I would love to do without being high, that the addiction took that away from me. It totally took over me physically and mentally. From the time that I woke up in the morning, you know, usually I would pray and give thanks to God that I have another day of life, that I have another opportunity to get better and better myself. Or the first thing I would do is, you know, go give my kids a hug or a kiss, or go and make them breakfast to get their day started, you know, get them prepared for school. But in my addiction, my first thought was how and when, where I was gonna get it. So it totally took over my mind, man.
So what were you addicted to?
I was addicted to opiates, oxycodone 30 milligram to be exact.
So the same ones that are prescribed by doctors for knee injury?
Yes, sir.
And you played college football?
Yes, sir. I did play college football for McClintock High School. I was a tremendous athlete. As a sophomore, what ended up happening was I got moved up to varsity, and the spot that I took was from a senior that was playing running back, in which he played the same position as me, and he felt threatened that I was going to take his position. So what ended up happening in practice, he pulled a dirty move in which he hit me low below the knee, which is a illegal hit, right, and it cracked my femur. And so it did not start off as a problem early on. Obviously, I was in high school. I was still partaking into sports, and so I took pain meds then, and then I was easily able to wean off. And so as I grew older, what occurred was I seen that there was a want for pain meds, and not only were people addicted to marijuana, but they were addicted to pain meds. And so I saw an easy way and fast way to make money. And so what did I end up doing is I started selling pain medications to people because I seen how crazy people were going over them, and I wanted fast money. Growing up, my father was a hustler. He made fast money. My mother was an addict. And so being that I became ingrained in that life, I wanted that lifestyle. I wanted the cars. I wanted the money. I wanted the fame. I wanted the respect. And so I followed in those footsteps. And so what I ended up doing was putting together a plan, and I started selling those pills.
So you were selling and using?
Yes.
Were you using or selling more?
I was selling more.
Yeah.
I started off selling more. And so put together a master plan and had a group of people selling for me. And basically what I was doing was I would buy their prescriptions at a low price and then sell them for a high price.
Wow.
And not only were people bringing me money, man, they were bringing me things of value, and I mean, from jewelry to clothes to entertainment systems or what have you, and I seen the desperation for them. And so I became curious in my mind as to why are these people going so crazy over these little blue pills, and that curiosity, the thought of it led to action.
What's interesting is I was doing the same thing, but I was on the other end. I was doctor shopping, right? So I had an ankle injury where I broke during my accident, my left knee. When I recovered from that, I blew my hand out. So I had 3 different doctors.
Right.
So if I got low on medication, I could just go to this other doctor, and tell him, hey, that last one didn't work. Can you give me some stronger? Or I would play it.
Right.
But I didn't even know I was playing it.
Right.
Maybe subconsciously I did.
Right.
But it steamrolled fast. How fast did your addiction get out of control? Well, what age were you at when you felt like it was becoming an issue?
About 28.
Okay.
25 I actually started.
And 28 where it just got out of control.
That's when it got out of control.
What happened?
I started taking 5 to 10 of them, and the next thing you know, I started enjoying the feeling. At
a time or during the day?
During the day.
Okay.
During the day. I would take 5 to 10 of them, and the next thing you know, the number just started slowly increasing. The thing that kept me doing them is that I never got sick. You know what I mean? And so I kept increasing the amount.
So what did your addiction cost you?
It cost me everything. It cost me a beautiful, loving, caring wife. It cost me my kids. It cost me my job. It cost me my car. It cost me my home. It cost everything within myself. My love, my care, my confidence.
Let me ask you this. How many times, because we talk about this at work a lot about hitting rock bottom, but how many rock bottoms can we have?
There's multiple rock bottoms. I truly believe that there's multiple rock bottoms. Everybody has their own rock bottom. Your rock bottom may be deeper than mine may be deeper than yours. But what it actually took me this last time is that I OD'd twice. And it's just the insanity of it that after the first time that I OD'd, my first immediate thought was, how am I going to get my next pill? I need to get another pill. Versus rationally thinking would be, my kids just watched me die. My wife just watched me die.
So they were on scene, saw the paramedics. On scene,
yes, crying hysterically, hurt, the whole 9. And I did not feel none of those feelings. You know what I mean? And that's just a part of the insanity of an addict. It's crazy. We think irrational.
Why do you think you didn't change your mind right there? Why do you think it took a little bit?
I think that, being, you know, the fact that it's a mind-altering substance. That's a part of the definition of an addiction, you know, and that's really the only way that I can answer that. You know, it alters your mind, you know, and it doesn't allow you to feel feelings. It does not allow you to express those feelings.
Gotcha.
You know, and so the first thing you immediately want is, how am I gonna get another pill?
Gotcha.
You know, and it's part of what they call chasing the dragon. You know, it's never enough. It's never good enough. You know, and so that's part of the reason why I immediately wanted to get another pill.
For the sake of time, let me ask you this question. What's different this time?
What's different this time? I truly believe that I'm doing it for myself. You know, the first time around, I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know, my wife, it was like an ultimatum. You know, either you get sober or I'm gonna divorce you. You know, and so it led me to believe that if I don't get sober and clean, if I don't get myself right, that she's gonna leave me. And so the other part of me in the back of my mind still is crazy, is that one day I am gonna get high again. So it was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I wasn't there for myself. If you want to get recovery, if you want to live a sober and clean life, if you want to get on the right path, you have to be it all in, and you have to want it for yourself.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you this. So here at The Fix, we want to start a process of asking questions. The last segment, from people in the community, give us a question. I'm gonna build on that.
Okay.
One of the questions posed was this: does an addict ever fully recover? And I know we spoke before about it, and there's a lot to this question, but you have 1:51 to sum this up. What do you got?
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I'd like to believe that an addict does fully recover, but from my perception, I'd like to think that we don't ever recover. The reason why I say that to say this is because it's a constant reminder for me to remind myself that it's a constant battle. You know, that I can continue to face this challenge day in and day out. You know, and it's part of what led me to recovery and to get help was desperation. And I believe that, you know, some people look at desperation as a negative thing. I look at it as a positive thing as well, because desperation led me to recovery. And so if you're in a desperate mindset, you're going to do whatever it takes to get yourself right, to get yourself better. So in that matter, I carry desperation within that, looking at it as if I'll never recover. So I'm going to continue to do whatever it takes and get creative to keep myself on the right path, to keep myself getting better, to continue to put challenges in front of me, you know, in order for me to continue to overcome. Because I tell you what, here's the thing. I know people that 20 and 25 years of recovery and they relapse. You know what I mean? And they believe, they had in their mind that they fully recovered. And by putting that in your mind that you fully recovered, what comes behind that is comfort, complacency. And I don't ever want to get in that mode. I don't never want to get in that mindset. So that's why I look at it in the aspect that I'll never recover. It's going to be a forever long life battle.
Deshon, thank you for your time, man. Thank you for being the first guest on The Fix.
Absolutely.
I know what you do for a living. You have a phenomenal impact on other men in this community. I thank you for your effort. I thank you for your information. I would love to invite you back on The Fix in a future episode, because I don't think we even scratched the surface of it.
No, we haven't. There's so much more to addiction, you know, and anytime my story, you know, any recovering addict story can help other recovering addicts out there, I'm always game for it.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for watching The Fix. This was brought to you by Sholo TV. I'm Brock Bevel, and we'll see you next time.